Are you lonely and depressed? Do you strive for human connection, but the idea of going off and getting that kind of thing stresses you out to no end? Did you peak in high school? Well, if that's you, then this video is exactly what you need. Today we're going to be talking about making friends as adults. So let's get our terms straight here. First thing is when I say friends, I don't really mean somebody you meet once every 6 days for coffee. You know what I mean? I mean somebody you can have actual connections to that can be by your side for more than, just for convenience sake. The idea here is what happens if after college or during college it didn't necessarily happen, or throughout college you move to a different area and friends are sparse. You actually have to go make some manually. How exactly do you go about doing that? And that's the topic for today's video. And also, one other thing is when I discuss friends, I do mean more closer and intimate connections, not necessarily somebody that's just there for the convenient times, but something you can actually have real meaningful relationships with. So the question is, and the topic of today's video, how to make friends as an adult. Now, when it comes to interactions as adults, there's really two types of relationships you can maintain, especially on a first time basis, being forced and free. And these kind of interactions can really dictate exactly how you should go about, getting to know people on a more detailed basis. Like, for instance, being in a forced interaction is putting yourself in a situation that will force you to interact with people. And most times, this can be a really easy icebreaker if you're a little bit more introverted. That way, it's not very, it's not like walking up to somebody in a grocery store, tapping on their shoulder and saying, "Hey, where do you live?" So, types of interactions that have actually worked for me personally is niche hobbies. And what I mean by that is for a couple of years, actually, I played a card game called Magic the Gathering. Now, you do have to be kind of a nerd to enjoy this one, but bear with me here. If you like, I implore you, take out your phone right now, go to whatever maps you have, and type the words Magic the Gathering and hit go. Stores will pop up left, right, and center. The beauty of these stores is, and depending on, you can have good ones and bad ones, but if you get a pretty good store, you can go in there and just play cards with whoever is there. Most times, and all you have to do as an icebreaker is walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, you want to play a game?" And pretty much every time they'll say, "Yeah, I got a minute." So, and the beauty of that game, especially when it comes to interacting with people you don't know, is you have to communicate. This is the game. You have to explain what you're doing. You have to ask questions about what they're doing, so you can really build some kind of a foundation of a relationship on that. And if you really enjoy people, it's very easy to change contact information and redo this kind of thing. Now, Magic is not the only game you can do. Like Warhammer 40K. I've never played it myself, but I know it's extremely popular and has all those little local game stores. Same thing with Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh, and so long as you're that kind of nerd, you can really enjoy that kind of thing, and you can build very long-term relationships with people like that. Have them over to your house even to play those kind of games. And I'm pretty sure there's similar things for just like regular good old-fashioned board games, but wouldn't know, haven't done it myself. The next one is probably the most common way, especially nowadays, for people to make friends, either move into a new city or as an adult, and that is the good old fashioned American tradition of church. The thing about church is it's another situation you can put yourself in that would force you to interact with people, because usually you're all going for the benefit of spiritual enrichment, which is something you all have in common. So as you go, and most times if you get a decent church, not saying all of them are good, but if you get a decent church, they're a backbone of their entire organization is community. So there will be different ways you can get involved in some of those kind of things, whether you want to help, maintain the church grounds, or you want to go to one of their small groups. I mean, the one I'm going to now, even in coming up in December, they have a whole, it's kind of like a lunch thing. They call it ladies tea, where you can go and pay like $20 and have like this whole dessert bar and different types of tea. I'm not a woman, nor do I like tea. That's all I know about it. But I know that it's there. So they have a whole bunch of these different community events that can help you get involved and see people on a repeated basis. That way you can really enjoy presence and company of others without it being, all on you to actually start these kind of conversations. And it's easy to really interact with people like that. Anyway, moving on. Another type of forced interaction is work. Pretty unanimously, everybody works around at least one person. And if you have, a new person coming into your job, or there's somebody there who you actually like, put an effort into meeting with them outside of work. Even if it's just say, or just try to find some kind of middle ground and pursue that activity. Invite them over for dinner. Invite your entire place or your entire workforce over, and just have like a potluck or something like that. And that can really help progress friendships that way. And if you work in an office space where every one of your coworkers are just conceited douchebags that are miserable to be around, then one of the most positive experiences I think one of my favorite jobs I've ever held was a Waffle House. It was 2022, I believe, and I was just about to get ready to move out to college, and I took a second job. I worked the second shift, so it was kind of on my like days I wasn't working full hours at the plantation I was at. But when I went to training, there was another guy there who was, fresh into the training class. His name was Jacques. I was going to be a server. He was going to be a cook. And we were put out to the same store. So when we got there, the manager decided that it was a genius idea to put us by ourselves, the most unknowledgeable people in the entire workforce. So when we neither of us were really set in any traditions or normal ways that the jobs are run, we got to kind of build a working relationship and kind of figure out exactly how we were supposed to work together. And it was really great for the both of us. I mean, like, one of the greatest things that we did was he was an army kid or some kind of military. I don't know if it was exactly army, but regardless, as I think you mentioned, like one of his parents was a drill sergeant. I remember that. But despite having grown up in this really strict household, one of the ways he found, or one of the activities he enjoyed most as a child, was reading comic books. And because, again, I'm a nerd in every sense of the word, that I thoroughly enjoy that kind of thing. So we spent day in, day out discussing who would win in a fight between a canonically accurate Batman or a canonically accurate Superman. And I remember one time we were kind of talking, there was a lot of people in the store, but we were kind of, having this little debate about who would win. My manager came out and said, "Hey, Flash solos them both every time." And this is, another like middle-aged man coming in and dropping this absolute bomb of cool on us. And from then on, he wasn't a manager anymore. He was just the guy who was wrong about everything DC comic related. And he would die on the hill that Flash would solo Batman in every fight they ever had, which, that's a whole video I can make on its own, which is just factually inaccurate. But I digress. Next on the list is furthering education, like night school or some things like that, or if you want to go for a different, niche kind of education. I have this on my list as just night school, but I'll explain what I mean. Um, Whenever I get, whenever I feel like my life is kind of dull, I'll pursue new knowledge to kind of freshen up something. And I ended up taking a class and getting a security license. And in that, I actually met some really cool people from around my area. Um, Even in I think the class is a week long or 2 weeks long, depending on the schedule you want to have, but it's about $150. So it's not extremely expensive, but it's another thing where you're forced to interact with people. And there's an exam at the very end of it, which, you do need to study for. So it's very easy in that kind of scenario to exchange contact information and use this kind of thing to help you, build relationships with other people. You can use it to help study, talk about different experiences. You can ask people why you wanted to do this kind of thing. That way you can breach into a little bit of more intimate conversations without necessarily having, all the pressure being put on you to start these kind of conversations. So that is a way. And like, I'm even looking into getting my forklift certification. I'm a musician who works at a restaurant. Am I ever going to drive a forklift? No, but I want to say I'm forklift certified. So that's another class where, if anybody ever asks me why, I can tell that why. And then, it's kind of a funny story. You can build a conversation from there. So that's another way you can make some pretty solid friends. Next on the list is pretty hard to come by, but I not only know it's possible, um, these things can be pretty effective, and it is community events. Now, if you live in a really big city like Orlando, it's going to be pretty hard, just because the sense of community is a little different depending on where you go. But if you live in a very small town, this probably isn't really an issue for you. But community events are everywhere. Like, I mean, as of right now, I live just on the outside of Orlando in a relatively small town that has a very active Facebook page or a Facebook group. And I say this, I feel like I'm about 49 years old, but some of those Facebook groups, they can really help you maintain and build some of those relationships without feeling so strange about you being forced to go up to these kind of people. There's a painting class that is attached to my community events. A while ago, they were actually cleaning up a city park that's down the street from me. I didn't go to that one, but I know that's a thing, and I do know somebody who did go, and they said it was nice and all that good jazz. And you don't have to know anybody to go, so you can just kind of show up and just talk to people, and it's very easy, and it's very easy to do that. But this closes out the list for forced activities. Now, the next section of the list is going to be a lot smaller and a lot more difficult, but it is an extremely effective way to meet people as an adult. And this is free interactions. We just got done with the force side, but free. So, what exactly is a free interaction? And it's pretty much where there's no one telling you to communicate with other people or be around other people, and you have to do it out of your own free will. So, for instance, as of right now, I live in an apartment. There is people that way and that way and that way. I mean, that's three separate people who live right next to me that, you know, the only thing keeping us from interacting is scheduling at a door. So if you live in an apartment building, and I'll explain, one of my closest friends down here where I'm staying now, actually, I met as he was moving in. He and his friend were carrying a drum set into an elevator, and I just felt this weird, like I felt compelled to go over and ask about it. So going over. His name is Juan. He's a Colombian guy, 2 floors up from me, and it is he's a great guy, and we just got talking to each other. We both talked about our love for music and all that kind of stuff. And I just said, hey, my apartment's down there. Come over sometime. I'd love to jam out with you. And it took like a month, but I came home one day and it was a piece of paper duct taped to my door, and it was said, hey, this is Juan. Came by. You weren't home. Here's my phone number. Shoot me a text. And pretty much after that, had him over for dinner a couple times, and he is pretty much one of my closest friends down here. And all it was just he was moving in. He's new to the area. I'm new to the area, so voila, there's something there you can already start a conversation over. And maybe somebody's not moving in for you, but if you do live even like suburbs, if you have people all down your street, like bake a batch of cookies. Go to Costco, buy yourself this giant box, lay them out on a plate, and just go door to door. Hey, I came over, I just want to get to know people around the area, and I brought you this, you enjoy that, call me over sometime. I'd love to get to know you. And most times people almost definitely accept whatever you give. May not have a whole lot of hits from that way, but maybe one person would be like, oh yeah, I'm thinking the exact same thing. And voila, you can have brunch together sometime for all I know. It doesn't matter. But that is a way you can go about interacting with people. It's not exactly the easiest interaction, and depending on where you live, that might not be very safe, but it is something you can do. And the only other type of like free interaction I think would be very common is if you're a pet owner. Go to places where people take their pets. Like for instance, go to a dog park. Most times people like talking to other people. They just go and say, hey, beautiful day, isn't it? Yeah, it is. What kind of breed dog do you have? I have this breed. What about you? I have this. What made you get into blah, blah, blah. And something like that. Those little tiny nuggets of conversation can really sprout so long as you put some effort into it. And that's pretty much everything on the free side of human interaction, but there are some more that I'm sure I'm just not thinking of. But anytime that even if you're in a grocery store and somebody's blocking your reach to the panko breadcrumbs, just say, hey, excuse me, trying to get those breadcrumbs right there. Do you like breadcrumbs? Moral of the video: life is hard, and especially making friends as an adult can be kind of difficult, or at least known as difficult, but it's not necessarily impossible. Focus on putting yourself in situations where there are other people around. I mean, 9 out of 10 times, especially in America, people will talk to you. And as long as you can, get past that initial conversation stage, you can build very meaningful relationships that way without coming off as too strange. So, if you found the list enjoyable, bully for you. And if this was, a waste of 15 minutes now, I mean, you know, oh well, it was your fault for clicking on this anyways. I'll die on that hill. And if there's anything I missed, it's not going back in this video. It's in the past. What are you doing? Anyway, peace.